My name is Norman Scherzer, and I'm the executive director of an organization called the Life Raft Group, an organization for patients with a rare and deadly cancer called GI stromal tumor, or GIST. And the reason I'm making this video today is because a number of newspapers and mass media outlets have been talking about a recent decision in India affecting Novartis and Gleevec, but also the latest in a series of announcements by the Indian courts regarding patent protection for pharmaceutical drugs. And the reason that we're interested in this is that it raises a number of questions, some of which may not be that apparent when you read the initial stories. The focus on these stories always seems to be on patient access to drugs and the cost of drugs, and the issue of allowing manufacturers to produce drugs on a generic basis that drug companies have been producing on a brand basis. And that raises a number of interesting questions. One of them is that there's a difference between a patent expiring and generic companies being licensed to manufacture a drug, and a patent being taken away where generic manufacturers have to basically guess or figure out how to reproduce a drug. And when a patent is taken away, when a generic company simply comes in and begins producing a drug, it does raise some questions that we ought to be concerned about safety and about efficacy of a drug. But the more important question really is, we agree that there is a major problem with regard to patient access. The question is access to what? Is it access to the drug that we had yesterday, to which many patients have developed resistance? Or is it access to the drugs that we need tomorrow to keep patients alive? And the dilemma is that when you take away the patent protection from pharmaceutical companies, that takes away the incentive to produce drugs tomorrow. The problem is that the further we go in terms of science today, the more difficult it is to produce drugs for a niche market, for a relatively small number of patients. And to do that, pharmaceutical companies do need an incentive. I agree, and my organization agrees, that access to expensive drugs is a real issue. And on another occasion, we do want to address the issue of who ought to pay for these very expensive drugs. But the most important question, and the one that we focus on in our organization, is who's going to produce the drugs we need tomorrow for our patients to survive? Is it going to be the generic manufacturers? Is it going to be the Indian government? Or is it going to be pharmaceutical companies? And the reality is that we're dependent right now on pharmaceutical companies to do this. So in order to produce tomorrow's cures, I think that we need to be a little bit more cognizant of access to drugs that have not yet come onto market, and having a bar that is set up that pharmaceutical companies can match. I think it also would be helpful if we had some clearer global standards that defined what is a novel drug worthy of patent protection, as opposed to having each individual country do it on their own. And finally, I'm also aware that we have a number of sister agencies, some of which have been in the news lately, particularly Doctors Without Borders, that seem to have a different point of view. And so we would invite them to meet with us. We would like to sit down with sister organizations who have a primary concern in having patients access drugs, particularly in the world of AIDS, and making these drugs affordable, and talking to them about how to do that while at the same time being able to access tomorrow's cures by not taking away incentives from pharmaceutical companies. So thanks for listening. We hope to hear other different points of view.